We will give a few people some time to jump in here. Thank you for joining. We are back once again. What is happening, everybody? I'm looking at my monitor right now, make sure we're streaming out on all the platforms. We want to make sure that you're jumping in here and having a great day today. So how was your day? What's happening out there in all the worlds that we live in right now? All right, I think we are good. I think we're good. We got everything going. Nice, nice, nice. So welcome, everyone. My name is John Register, and you are on Hurdlers of Adversity. We are maximizing with these influencers that we've had on these shows. I mean, oh my goodness, it's been such an incredible journey. Thank you all for being on with me. Maximizers, influencers, maximizers of these moments. It's been great. We are here to help all of us to amputate fear, embrace a new normal mindset, and really begin to have the conversations that are meaningful in our lives as we come forward, as we move through these tough times, these challenging times that each one of us has been going through, especially this year. And we want to make sure that there are some systems in place, some operations that we have in place to help all of us get through these times better. So as you're coming on, I want to just thank you all for being on and keep continuing to support this show, the Hurdlers of Adversity. And as you are coming on, I want to make sure that we recognize you as well. So if you are on board right now, I want you to put in the chat. If I look over here, you know, I'm trying to look for your comments, and I want to see them because I want to shout you out for being on and being such a loyal supporter of the show. So we got Lynn Keir is on, always the first one. Lynn is like number one. Yay, she's like the number one fan. So thank you, Lynn, for being on and all the support. Ladies and gentlemen, she like DM'd me and tells me the great things I'm doing. And she tells me the better part of it is how I can improve and get better. So I love that because we all are about trying to take some feedback. I'm an athlete. Athletes always take feedback and we apply it really quick to the lessons of our life. You see my piano that's in the background over there, and yeah, it's all illusion because if I take it down, you're going to see behind the curtain. So what's going on? I want to put Lynn out there because she's always on. So Lynn says, hello, John, Carmen, and fellow attendees, coming to you from a very rainy Charlotte. Absolutely. Carmen was talking about what was happening there just a little bit early before we got on the program. And Lynn also says, I am your number one fan. Yay. So thanks, Lynn. I appreciate you being on. So for those that are coming on, I just want to give a shout out to you. Put where you're from in the chat box. We want to recognize where you're from. I know Lynn is on from Charlotte. She's always coming on and to set her alarm clock to it. But where are you streaming from? Where is your stream yard coming from? Because I want to know. I want to know where you're supposed to be. I'm going to be actually in Chicago tomorrow and driving back to Colorado tomorrow as well because we have some things that we're doing, some family things. So let's get ready to look at some of these what's happening with our guest. But before we get there, I want to share an update on what's been happening over the past week with me. Some of you may have seen me post in the LinkedIn Live and on YouTube and in the Facebook group the FM22 podcast animation that was done by our State Department when I did a podcast with them. It was absolutely phenomenal. So if you're in the D&I space, you are a chief diversity officer. And if you did not see that podcast that came out, oh my goodness, we have Disability Employment Awareness Month coming up in October. And that video that they did, that little, whoever did the graphics on, I can't remember the company name, but it was absolutely stellar. So I will repost that in the link all over LinkedIn and YouTube, as well as the Facebook group. So you get a chance to see that. And then you might be able to share that with your teams because it's really a great way to have this dialogue and this conversation. Okay, so who am I? Why are we having these talks? Well, for me, I just want to give you a little insight for those that might be joining for the first time and coming on board with us. I am a former world-class athlete. At 5:29 in the afternoon on May 17th, I was a two-time Olympic trials qualifier. I ran the 110-meter high hurdles and 400-meter hurdles in the Olympic trials. And then I was also in the Army. I was on my way to officer candidate school, had been selected and boarded by an officers group in Germany, was selected for officer candidate school. But on May 17th, as a part of the Army's world-class athlete track and field team, I was training for a race and trying to re-qualify for the Olympic team, misstepped a hurdle, landed awkwardly, severed the artery behind my kneecap through a dislocation, and 7 days later had the choice to make of either keeping my leg and using a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or amputating my leg and becoming a person that has to use a prosthetic for the rest of your life. Now, what kind of choice is that? Well, in that downward moment, in the downward spiral, coming through the war, the Gulf War without a scratch, and facing this challenge, it was my male deductive reason that said, because I was in so much pain, if I just get rid of the leg, I can get rid of the pain. But that was not the case. I chose an elective surgery to amputate the limb. And when I woke up, I was in more pain than my male deductive reasoning had reason. And it was in my lowest moment when I was questioning my identity that my wife said, we're going to get through this together. This really just is our new normal. And I began using that as a framework to have these robust conversations and actually push myself. 6 years after I had the amputation, I wound up winning the silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia. And prior to that, made a second Paralympic team, my first Paralympic team, as a swimmer. So I say all that to say we do come through some tough challenges and times in our lives, and how we handle those times is really a direct reflection of our character. Our character is who we are when no one's watching. Now, we've all heard that. But our character is what we also stand for when everyone is watching. And our character is revealed in us during our times of testing. So how have you been tested? What's been going on in your world, in your life, that has been testing you? So once again, thank you for joining, and we're going to get ready to introduce you to this amazing guest that we have, so we can spend a little time talking with him about the insights that he is bringing to the table. So as you're coming on, please, once again, put that stuff. I'm looking at the board up here and looking to make sure that everything is going out. Everything seems to be going fine. But let's make sure that we are communicating effectively out there. So jump on board. I met our guest when he worked for BP. I found him to be just one of these genuine, amazing human beings. Just somebody you want to talk to, have a cup of coffee with, or we say in the Army, have a cup of joe with. And I love just picking his brain for the amazing insights that he brings to the table. So here's why you have to kind of sit up straight and listen to this gentleman talk today. It's because he is has a BS from West Point, so Army officer, Bronze Star from Operation Desert Storm with the third Armor Division, military intelligence as an Army Ranger. I always thought military intelligence was an oxymoron. Marketing director at Castro Lubricants, North America, South America, Middle East, and Asia. At BP, the international key accounts, and now the VP of sales at Outacampo. He brought me in to speak when he was building this veterans ERG group at BP, an employee resource group. It was amazing to see him just working that whole process come together, and we just hit it off ever since. So please welcome my dear friend, Carmen Pino. Thank you for being on, Carmen.
Hey, John, how are you today? Great to see you.
I'm doing well. Love the swords up on the look at those guys up there, man. He's gonna swipe us. He's gonna knock us out. I really appreciate you being on, because we are living in these times right now that are just, I don't know if people have really turned the corner. The bulk, I know some people have, but I think the bulk, my sense is a lot haven't turned the corner, and they're waiting for things to kind of go back to the way they were. So help me understand, as your role at Outacampo right now, and kind of be part of that is, what are you doing to kind of set the tone from the top to that organization?
Okay. Well, let me talk about the company for just 30 seconds for context, because we got to know each other as I was, in the middle of a long oil and gas career. and being a bit adventurous, about 1.5 years ago, I decided to shift gears, leave an industry that I knew inside and out, and get to the steel industry, specifically stainless steel. And at the time, I didn't know much about Outacampo, really knew nothing about steel. And of course, that's where I wanted to go. And So Outokumpu manufactures stainless steel. We're integrated back to a chrome mine in Finland, forward to melt shops and steel mills, the type that the things you see on TV is heavy industry, and then all the way forward integrated to service centers and cutting metals into squares and circles and different pieces around the world. So we have about 10,000 employees, give or take 2.2 million tons of material. I couldn't tell you how much that is, but it's a lot, right? I mean,
I can't
it's
lift
a lot when millions of tons. I can't lift it, and really, it's just a great company. We're the market leader in Europe. We're number 2 in the Americas, and part of my job is to help us in the Americas. So I joined as the head of commercial and the VP of sales about 15, 16 months ago. And I look a little rough today. The last couple of days, anybody watching the news, Hurricane Sally came through Mobile, and I've spent from the conference calls, all virtual, of course. Then I've been out working in the yard and tearing trees and limbs and dragging them all over the curb because fortunately we were blessed. Our house and family, everybody's safe, but our yard took a bit of a beating.
Well, I'm glad you're safe. And we've had, and I know that Lynn's down that area. She's in Charlotte, so that's always an area. I think that kind of always happens in the cycle of things, and I think people can get kind of settled into ways of they get a sense of feeling of how strong something's going to be just because they've lived in the area for such a long time. And I think we've all lived in such a time period where we got comfortable and who we are. We were comfortable going to basketball games. We were comfortable going to, picnics and traveling the world. And all of a sudden it was just like dead stop and we had to make this shift. So as you came into this new role and you're not even new role in the whole new industry, was there some things that you took from your past that really helped you to share with other individuals, your team members, of how you can actually get through this?
Yeah, and I guess the challenge with this, and I lived in Houston before this, so Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Harvey, my family and I went through this, our third major hurricane. But here's the thing: the hurricane yesterday morning, we woke up and it was raining and windy and it was terrible. And then by the time we went to bed, everything was back. And some people have travesties beyond anything we could imagine, right? House and home and death, and it's terrible. But it ends and it comes and goes and it has boundaries. I think the thing about COVID, and it's isolated geographically, right? The thing about COVID that's made it so complicated is, one day in the middle of March, my CEO and I were in Mexico at our mill in San Luis Potosí. We were talking to employees. We were having a dinner out in a restaurant and talking about, hey, I wonder if this really is going to change the world and change things. And what are we going to have to do? We should have some meetings about it next week. And I flew back on Friday and the world shut down Saturday. Right. And it just ended like that. And the breadth, the depth, the level of impact on everybody everywhere is just amazing. And we're all living through that. And something like this, talking to you through video, frankly, 6 months ago was a bit odd, but it's become a bit of a strength that I'm talking to my customers every day. I'm talking to my employees every day. We're seeing each other. We're talking. We're checking up on each other. Though, my employees in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico, I haven't seen any of them in 6 months. I haven't seen any of the ones other than the ones in Mobile in a long time. And you know what? We're functioning. And we're functioning because we're communicating better. We're adapting. And I think, and I'm going to steal a tagline and I'll credit Malcolm Frost, a good friend of mine from the academy and does a lot of public work. And it's not the new normal that we're looking for. It's the new abnormal. Because the people that are sitting around waiting for it to get back to normal, guess what? I don't think it's happening.
At least not in that capacity, for sure. I think there are some things that will come back to normal, which I hope they really don't. But I'm sure, as we have seen history, it will settle into normal. And now I'm not talking about systems, but I am talking about attitudes.
Yeah.
So usually people become complacent at some point again, and they'll be going back to doing what in their world as it shifted normal things, right? So the ball games probably were going to come back in a different capacity, a different way of delivering it, but we'll settle into that. And then that will be that normal existence that we have, and it'll be shaken up again. So the abnormal absolutely is right. Always on the cutting edge, always thinking forward in that space. So when that happened, and you were kind of starting to get ahead of the curve, and everything did shut down, what were you thinking was going to, you kind of the before, if you can kind of put your lens on, if you were journaling it, what did you think was going to happen when everything went down? Did you think that employees would have to be home and becoming teachers for their children if they were in that capacity? Or, what were some of the thoughts that were going through your head?
Well, to be fair, we had no idea. We had no idea how deep it was going to go. But what we did have a clue to is that we had to listen. We had to watch. We had to evolve. And as a company, particularly our business in the Americas, we had made some changes and choices in the business beforehand, and we were really humming along. All parts of the business were lined up. And historically, we weren't always there. And like all companies, you go through these cycles. Sometimes you're hitting it and sometimes you're not. Well, we were really hitting it as a team, from our operations and our supply chain, our finance, HR, commercial. We're all kind of pulling and moving in the right direction. I think that was the best thing in the world because we went in at such a point of strength. And as we had to, chuck and jive and move and do all the things that we had to do on the fly, we were doing it quickly, making good decisions and getting aligned. And a simple thing is we set a 30-minute phone call every morning. Now, we never felt we had to do that, but imagine that, getting on the phone and talking to the other, influencers and leaders in the business and saying, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. How does it impact you? So the business, as the world slowed down and stopped, our business took a big dip like every other business, but it started crawling slowly out and really just doing tremendously day in and day out. If you've seen any of the COVID models, they talk about this thing called a bumpy U, which basically means a long, slow, and not steady recovery.
Yeah.
It will have its bumps, and we're living it, and we're doing fine. We're really doing well, and we got 2,000 employees in the Americas that are making it happen.
That's great to hear. And I'm laughing, not really. I'm smiling because I know Lynn is probably smiling too. Because one of the things that she was on the show a little while ago, and one of the things that she said, coming in almost like you, coming fresh to a new company, Diebold Nixdorf, and she comes in and has a new team, new person, and all of a sudden this is going on, and it's all about the communication. And she started having those 30-minute meetings as well. So I think there's a great pattern there with leadership, because I think we want to know what we always hear the word uncertainty, and uncertainty makes us anxious and angst. And so we get paralyzed by the word, and we don't think we can actually do something. And sometimes it's just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks to figure out how we're going to advance, and then coming together and having those communication meetings. So when you kind of look at kind of looking backwards now, what do you believe the greatest lesson is that you've learned individually and as a company from having to make that shift?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's to me a lesson in empathy. And I use the term so broadly because empathy, what your employees are going through. And now use these general, I mean, aged parents, sick children, becoming teachers, what your customers are going through, their customers not paying, order books dwindling, what the world's going through. And by trying to listen and reflect and show empathy to what's happening, it's really helped us kind of adjust and be better employers, be better service and product suppliers to our customers, and just be better in delivering our business model. And it's really helped. And to me, that's the big learning. And it's something over the years I've personally really had to work with, Because I mean, okay, stereotype Army Ranger, right? Hey, we go forward, and going forward is always the right thing to do. And if my team's on the call, they're going to know what I'm talking about there, right? They're not going to, have to imagine too hard to get there. But to go forward while listening, while trying to understand, and be smart enough to adapt when you need to.
Yeah,
And
but
that's big learning.
Absolutely. So, but here's why now I'm smiling for a different reason, because one of the questions that your stumpers in the room, or I don't know if it's a stumper, but it's one of these unique things about you that people just don't know, is you have 5 children that were born on 4 different continents, or from 4 different countries on 3 different continents with 1 wife.
One wife, yeah, there you go. That's key.
So
and you've met Gabriella, yeah.
Absolutely. So talk about that from the standpoint of this resilience that has been built up in your life with this unique dynamic that you have, because you got this amazing perspective now. And how does that play out in your leadership style?
Well, we've been blessed our whole life, right? I mean, even talking to Hurricane, we come out of this with some trees, right? People are really in a bad spot. We're dealing with yard work, right? And that doesn't get lost on Gabrielle and I ever. I grew up in Western New York, and really my life kind of came down to 3 actions. Now, there's a 4th underpinning action, and my wife has been there from the time she was my girlfriend and I was doing applications to West Point, time we got married right after graduation, and through the whole thing and through the 5 kids. But it's given us perspective, and the life's formed around 3 things, her being the underpinning, right? Going into the Army, joining West Point, and learning that punky, smart alecky, troublemaking kid that just happened to do well enough in school to stay out of serious trouble, to go there and learn how to grow up and learn. And people talk about you going to the military to learn how to lead. And I actually went to the military to learn how to follow, because by following, I learned to be a better leader. Mm-hmm. And people, if any of the friends are on the line and listening out, they know for sure I wasn't that good at it. And it was something that I really had to learn and evolve to. So formative, set a foundation, set a baseline for dealing with a lot of things. Now, going to Ranger School as an intel guy was not something I had to do, but going and coming out of it, and what I learned there in a short 9-week period has foundationally been the thing that, as I'm tearing trees down in my backyard today, I'm thinking, maybe I should slow down a bit. No, let's get the tree down. One of these days, that's going to, something I'm going to have to deal with and take a little bit more seriously, but you move in the right direction. It's bias for action. Figure out how to get it done. Yeah. Don't worry about the condition. The condition's just the condition. Go ahead, move, and get it done. Formative helps you deal with a crisis, because in a crisis, we know it's more about those firm, thought through, quick decisions that bring you out on the other end safely, whether you're in Iraq or whether you're in business. But the third one, and probably the one that built that empathy muscle more than others, and we've talked a lot about my 2 young boys. Now, God knows I love my older 3 biological babies, but those last 2 that Gabrielle and I endeavored on from Ethiopia and Uganda just made us see the world differently. And I could almost go to a day up to that first time we went to Ethiopia. Everything was career. Where's the next gold ring to jump to? And it was going okay. It was a reality check of what's important. And it was a perspective on the world that we just didn't have. Even though we didn't grow up wealthy, we grew up pretty, white/gray collar, if you will, somewhere between. But we had a great life. And those 2 boys changed everything. And now they're tough. Man, you talk about 11 and 8-year-old at my age, that's not easy. But it's fun, and every day's a challenge, and every day's a good day.
What do you wish, others that haven't traveled? I mean, and here's what I'm getting at, is that we have this whole polarization that's happening right now. That's for over a long time period in America, with race relations coming back, and COVID. You know, we're all trying to heal together. Now we see all this other stuff that comes up, and we got fires, we have hurricanes. It's like biblical proportions happening.
Yeah, locusts, they're next, right?
Locusts happen out in California too. So, you know, what do you see from that standpoint, from those that the 60% of Americans, I think it's 60%, I think I have them right. I think it's either 40% or 60%. It's off my head right now, but I think it's 40%. 40% of Americans that do not own a passport, that haven't traveled, that only get their information about the world through whatever outlet they're listening to. And that's their global perspective, is in that one person's opinion of what they may have seen from somebody else, because they haven't been there either. How do you have that conversation with someone who hasn't been as traveled as you, or working in different parts of the world, to have an up close personal experience with it?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? I mean, it's the hardest thing. Not everybody has had the benefit to be the 60 some countries between the army and the oil and gas, and now in the steel industry, right? And you know what? Home is home. So we should be, you know, at the basics, trying to figure out how to make our world better.
Mm-hmm.
That should be primacy. I get that completely. But it's a society, and you know, you get a little bit too myopic. I think it can be a real challenge, and I just think by having those conversations, and I'm going to just use a real example. 10 years and 2 months ago, before we brought my now 11-year-old home, I would have looked you in the eye. I'd have argued with you and said, there is no racism in America. I would have said that with a straight face. And I would have meant it, and it would have been a definition of ignorance that I would use, that I just didn't know. And now my boys have been fortunate, and we haven't been overexposed, but we've seen it. And maybe we're just more aware. And guess what? It's a small percentage, right? I mean, the mass, 90, I couldn't even put a percent plus, are just fantastic people out there living their lives and moving on. But there's that small percentage that carries some traits that, you know, I don't care for anymore. Might not have seen it before because it was subtle, but now the subtlety is a little bit more obvious. And I think that's part of just kind of an understanding of the bigger world. And I want America to be the greatest economy, the greatest employer, the greatest place to live, the greatest place of education, greatest place of healthcare, and everything in the world. That's what I want. But in the same token, we're one piece in the puzzle. And, you know, I don't know if it's a zero-sum game or not, but at the very least, it's got to be a game that not only one can rise. So we got to figure out how to kind of balance it out a little bit. And I've had the benefit of being in global roles. I mean, every bit as important to me as our mill here in Mobile, as our mill in San Luis Potosí in Mexico, and our service center in Buenos Aires, as well as all of our mills in Europe. Right? I mean, if one fails, we all fail. So,
right.
And you know, business. Let's be honest. You find a business that's 100% American, that doesn't have plants in Asia or Europe, or customers in Asia and Europe. It's a commingled economy. So we all rise or fail or sink together, I guess. And I want to win a little bit more. Don't get me wrong. I think that's okay. But I don't want to be the only winner, because if we're the only winner, that means we're going to lose eventually, in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple thoughts going on there. One, you have a unique perspective, and so I've been having these conversations now. So I'm kind of doing a little. It's not where I was going to go, but you went there, so I'm going to help. I've been having these conversations with a lot of companies and just helping them kind of navigate some of these things. And a lot of leaders, I think, where they're missing the mark is they're thinking, at least in this racial conversation, that we can quickly get to the solution, that we can quickly check the box and we can move on from a George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, or Breonna Taylor, and then we see the next one happen, like, oh my gosh, are we still here and doing this again? And that's why we can't move forward in the conversation, because things happen again, and we have to really go back to the root. Have you been able to share or counsel from what you have seen, kind of white CEO executive to other executives, to help them through this process, to stop some of the mistakes or missteps that are happening, and really take a look back? Because I love what you said here of listening, and not listening to respond, but just listening to seek to understand.
Yeah, and John, I would say that very clearly in my work life, for good, it's not been an issue. So it's
Yeah.
not been. Now, could we have been more proactive in bringing it to the table? Probably, but it's not been the issue. That's more of a reflection on the personal life and talking with kids and family and white friends and black friends and other friends. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's been much more of a personal Pino Corp than it has of any organization I've been with. But once again, and that's from a position of strength, that we've not had the issue to have to raise there and to have to dig into it through our company or BP before Adacumpo.
Yeah, I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell, I think, and it was he was interviewing. Who was interviewing him? I think it was Trevor Noah, and then I'm reading this book with Simon Sinek. You know, his last book, in Infinite Games, and talking about the difference between finite playing. If we only play to win, and I win, raise a flag, then that really speaks to your issue of, you know, we're all in this together. What are we leaving behind? So can we play a longer game to leave legacy for other individuals? As you think about that and legacy and leaving legacies, and for your, you know, for personally, what is it that you desire for yourself and desire for your family, desire for the company to be doing and looking for? And then kind of the B part of that question is, how do you think you're getting there now?
Well, so there's a lot, and you know, I guess I'm going to start with work in terms of making steel. And I didn't know this until I got into the industry, and certainly making stainless steel. Steel is 100% recyclable. So you use steel, you bring it back, you melt it, and you use it again. So in terms of every piece of stainless steel we make, there's a melt of somewhere between 80-90% of it is just coming from scrap steel. So that's a really important thing environmentally. And it's something, as we look at our footprint, as to understand our impact on the environment, particularly because you do melt it, you create temperatures, and there's emissions that we manage, and we have great people managing all that stuff. And so from a work sense, getting that part right has been real important. Now, from a personal sense, I guess it's a little bit of that, you know, how do we want to live as a family, and how do we want to work in the system? And listen, this comes from Gabriel. This isn't me. I mean, I've been Army Ranger business, right? I got a high school department head and teacher, our oldest, living in New York, working in a school predominantly for homeless and certainly single family or no family children inside New York City, a charter school. I have a social worker in Austin, Texas, my one daughter, and then I have a 20-year-old junior at George Washington in D.C. who's going to be a politician. So I got 3 saving the world, or maybe 2 saving the world and 1 to be determined. But that's mom's influence right there, right? And how do we do it every day? And from little things, you know, we always, you know, the Goodwill or, you know, the equivalent charities always know when the Pinos are moving. And all 17 moves, I mean, stuff's going to them and in piles and in droves, and toys and sheets and linens and things that don't make the move. And then we get to the new house and it's, well, this doesn't fit and that doesn't. So we've been just doing great in giving back wherever we can, with our children and their livelihoods, and with our family, and donating. We get to spend some time with the kids and getting to see them do some things that it's kind of great to be able to do that. We've been parents for a long time. So we think we probably made so many mistakes with the older ones that we can kind of relax more with the younger ones. But giving back through just watching them grow up and building their friends and doing things with and for them, and frankly taking all the joy that we get from them too. So that's kind of how we view it, from work to play to home.
I love it. Great, great answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Carmen Pino, VP of Autocumpo, and he is just dropping some knowledge here. I keep going back to the listening piece because it's so critical to just listen, and we often don't do that with inside of communication. That is a great piece of communication that we often don't think about. If you are enjoying this cast, please let them know that you're feeling them. So put Carmen out there at Carmen Pino. Put them out there and say that you are you're really enjoying this conversation. Put hashtag listen behind it too. So I want to give them credit for that. Empathy, I love that as well. Learning the lessons of empathy from around. What are we learning from this time together? And are you all out there being empathetic or more empathetic because of this time together? Or are you just like at each other's throats right now? How can we listen and how can we be more empathetic to the others? And empathy is more walking in the other person's shoes and understanding where somebody's coming from rather than sympathy, which I'm not sure. I can't remember the woman that said it. But it was, sympathy is like somebody saying you have, what was it? You have a child or somebody gets sick in your family, and instead of them being empathetic with you, they say, well, at least I'm not sick, or you got these other things going on in your life, so don't even worry about that. So we have to be more empathetic and really walk among their shoes. So continue to put that out there, push this cast out because we're having a great conversation. We're about to wrap it up. You all kind of get with the communication strategy. You have to get kind of sometimes looking at how important it is to for people as they're moving through a system, as they're moving through a process, maybe to have mentorship, that communication, that dialogue. Executive sponsors, I'm thinking now, who have been those individuals in your life, either in the military or outside, that have really said, I got this Fab Five, they're rock stars, and I'm the dumbest one in the Fab Five, and I'm just going to hang on as much as I can so they can pull me out of the trouble, and they won't let me, and they will not let me fail.
Well, I've been fortunate. I've had a couple, and John, one of them is somebody that I still talk to every couple of months in Europe, and he headed up the business that I was in Castrol BP for a long time, and John, this mentor, has been fantastic. As I was leaving BP and about to join Autocumpo, talking to him along the way and helping me, and where he really helped in the most part was, as I said, chasing that ring and always just, hey, what's the next bucket of gold to go after? Help me take a look back and learn patience. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from a mentor, and to learn, hey, be satisfied. That doesn't mean don't be ambitious, but be satisfied and look at what you've done and look at where you are, and don't always worry about the next step. And I hit a point in my career where, my early time in BP, I got promoted really, really fast. Every year, 2 years, I was getting a promotion, was feeling great. And then it got to a point like 10 years before, so a dozen years ago, it just got slow. And I got to kind of a level that it got a little bit harder, but I found that my appetite was built. That, hey, it's got to be, I need the next gold ring. And you know what? I did it. And John really helped me with that. And John, still talk to him. And you know what? Once I took a step back, once I started focusing a little bit more on those two little guys at home and realizing what was really important, what really happened, lo and behold, and then I ended up getting promoted again. Right. So it was just kind of really odd. Once I took my eyes off the gold ring, all of a sudden I had it in my hands and I didn't even realize it, I was just doing the right things and being more genuine in what I had to do and my roles that day as an employee, as a leader, as a father and a husband, all of that. and then it came, and that's been really great. And I would say mentorship is a much better thing to grasp to than executive sponsorship. Now, they're not the same in my definition, because mentorship crosses companies and industries.
Mm-hmm.
It's people I learn from. One of my older brothers, in many ways, is a mentor. When I talk to him about what's going on, I learn from him. Mentor doesn't need to be in the chain of command to me. An executive sponsor, there's somebody that helps you and works with you in that environment, but mentorship cuts across.
I love that definition. Thank you. That's a great explanation of it. So I was going to ask you, like, you just kind of already answered the next question I was going to ask you with inside of that, but with how's that mentor fueled your performance? You did that. So what then is kind of the greatest accomplishment you have seen the staff do as a result of being more resilient? What are some of those stories out there? I think, the reason I'm asking this question is because, oftentimes we have head down as leaders. We're buried in what we're doing. We have this tunnel vision, and you were already talking about the empathy that you were seeing or feeling and trying to distribute. So from that, being more empathetic, what have you seen as like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we did that because that happened?
Yeah. So go back to the Army Ranger for a second. And there's a saying that I have with my kids. I'm a blunt guy. I'm a blunt guy at work. I'm not a disrespectful guy. I'm a blunt guy. So the saying with my kids that I try to keep out of the workplace, but happens every now and then, is, hey, if you want to feel good about your bad decisions, talk to mom. And if you want to hear the truth, talk to me. Now, why do I use that in this? Listen, the business and the people in the business have a lot of autonomy. And you know what? Sometimes we do well and hit the marks, and sometimes we don't. And as leaders, we need to have a way to call both of them out. We need to recognize the successes and reward the successes. Sometimes we need to recognize and reward the failures. Because a good failure means that you tried, you followed a process, you did things. Maybe it didn't work out, but fail quickly, right? Don't take me on an expensive, long journey to fail. Take me on a short, fast journey, try something and fail. Fine. If you don't try anything, you're going to be stagnated and the market's going to pass you by. So how does that lead to today? Listen, the most proud I've been of an organization is the one I'm in right now. And listen, I had a great organization in Iraq. I had a great organization throughout the military, wherever I was. I had great organizations at BP. But we're sitting here in this vague, innocuous world that we don't know what's going to change. And the strength and the teamwork and the ability to move through things that we brought into it, and the ability to work together. Our supply chain, talking to our operation, talking to our finance team, talking to the commercial team, and just hitting on all cylinders, recognizing the people along the way, getting great call outs from our customer, is even getting better despite a crisis, and ultimately performing as a business. I mean, we could have easily said, oh, COVID, let's give it, hey, we got a free pass to fail this year. And you know what? That's just not the makeup of this team. And from the top down, we are our CEO down. We are just knocking it and doing well and working hard. And you know what? We're calling out when we succeed, and we're calling out when we're failing. And we're taking those failures not as you failed, it's we failed, and let's figure out how to not fail next time and do it better. So, I mean, to me, this is the greatest success we've had as a business, is what's going on right now every single day.
So when you talk about the failures and failing fast, we hear that time and again. How do you, or what is that? How do you get that over across to other business leaders who are slow to do that and they're trying to run it themselves, head down? How do you share that with them so that when we're talking about this global economy, this global engine that needs to run, because we need you to not be stagnant, right? We need you to move out. We're all in this together, even competitors as well, right? We have to move together so that this engine continues to move. Have you thought about how to get that across, or have you done that?
Well, I think I have a distinct advantage in this thing because you could fit what I know about the steel industry under the tip of my pinky, right? I'm not a steel guy, and I talk to our customers about that. I talk to our employees, everything else, and it having that little experience and being in a role like mine makes me have to listen. It's not just something I do to lead. It's not just something because I think it's a good idea. It's a vehicle of survival, right? And in my team and I have hit that cadence to just have those discussions. And every once in a while I'm running out of that window, but I've asked some really dumb questions a year in the role. And I used to joke with our CEO and say, I think I'm figuring this out, but I know I got some massive blind spots. And, as they come up, we're going to have to talk because there's things, you just have to learn. And some things you can't read about. And some things you can't just hear from somebody else. Some things you just have to do. And in the oil and gas industry, after 25 years, I kind of did most of them. And part of why I was a little bit maybe ready to move and try something different and unique and challenge myself. Now every day is a challenge. And, it's a great way to do it with the team. Learn and move on, ask questions, and every day is a risk-free environment to go ahead and try something different. Don't be dumb. And what I mean by that is, hey, test, ask questions. Don't just be reactive, but also don't be stagnant. And we're trying new things every day.
I think that's a great spot right there. Because as leaders, we have to give that grace to go and have people fail quickly and not really hold their, what I call feet to the fire, but my foot to the fire because I'm an amputee. In the capacity of building a culture that will not allow people to fail quickly. And so that begins with cover-ups. And, I have to kind of hide this because I know this person is going to be angry with me for making this, error. Don't want to keep repeating errors, want to learn from them, of course. But I think that's the grace that needs to happen. This has been phenomenal conversation, Carmen. Thank you so much for being on. And I can't wait to see all the comments. We're going to have to put the replays out and hear from folks. I hope you're out there. Keep on pushing Carmen. Put his name out there. The listening, the empathy, the patience, as well as you have to be in this space where you are leading through that example that he was sharing with us. So stick on board. We're going to close the show up. I just want to thank Lynn for being on and everybody else. I'm trying to see everybody from all the different locations. I can't call them out all right now, but thank you so much for being on, Carmen. And we're going to get ready to wrap the show. Any final words that you have? Where can people find you, and how do we get a hold of you?
Hey, John, listen, LinkedIn, hit me up. I'll gladly respond. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Every time I do, I think I learn a little bit and I get a little bit better, and I enjoy it. So that's the right way to do it, and love to do this again in the future. And, keep moving. You're doing the good stuff and appreciate it.
We'll definitely have you back on. That's for sure. This is great. I'm going back to listen because we had a lot of great nuggets that you dropped in there. So I want to pull those out for sure. And we'll put that out on LinkedIn just to make sure that people know that you were saying these things, so they'll go back and watch the replay on as well. So thank you, my friend. Stay on board. We'll close the show out.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being on. So we got some real quick things for you to do and make sure that you have this information. One, Carmen, I want to thank him for being our guest, listening, empathizing, being patient with individuals. I think, when we're talking about the releasing and having these moments of kind of amputation, what I say is that in our redefining moment, we have to identify what the fear is, and from identifying the fear, then having the courage to amputate it so that we can live on the other side of the equation and this new life that we have, that's a rebirthing of what we are going through, so we can be more resolved and resolute. And then that equals our liberation, but it's not for us. It's for us to go back and teach somebody else how to get out from their fears. But we have to, it's all the jumping, the courage, that's all on us as an individual. There's no book out there, like Carmen said, that we can read that pushes us off that ledge. We have to choose to jump ourselves. And that's the hardest part about that. And that's what we talk about all the time, at Inspired Communications, how we make those jumps and help people and to amputate the fear and embrace that new normal mindset. So please replay this video. We want to make sure that all the audience members out there that get the benefit of this. And I want to make sure that you saw the Robertson Ryan post I did this morning, Analog Digital and the Travis Mills Foundation, all those intersections that happened. It was a great video and of what people are doing to support others. So watch that and promote whatever page that you're watching this broadcast on. People are really hurting out there right now. And at Inspired Communications International, my company, we are really doing our part to give solutions and actions around this difficult period that we are living through. So this is one of them. We're trying to do these LinkedIn Lives and introduce you to these amazing guests that are hurling their adversity and they're inspirers and maximizers of these pivotal moments. So what I'm going to do coming up here is, I know there are a lot of meeting professionals, a lot of VPs of sales, a lot of folks that have been calling me and calling the business to have them be of help and assistance with the storyline to really infuse our methodology on how we hurdle the adversity with their business group. So we want to make sure that you know there is something coming up on September the 29th. We're going to have a by invitation only. It's called Amputate Fear. It's like a speaker showcase, so you can see how what we do actually impacts with what you may want to do. It's going to be on Zoom, so that means space is going to be limited. So if you're interested, just DM me, and we'll make sure that you get the information to push out. So only those who really need to shift the mindset, need to apply, because it will be very specific and very targeted. So if that's not you, don't even worry about it. So where is JR next week? I'll be Zooming and influencing all around the world from my office. So we got Cable Labs coming up, Concordia Summit on 2020. The PMI is coming up as well, and NHE Property Management. So all those conversations are happening next week as we're trying to help them hurdle their adversity, amputate fear, and embrace that new normal mindset. Remember, you can join our Facebook group, which has grown from 50 to now 100 people in the last week. We just started it so we can have more robust conversations, more robust dialogues, listening, as Carmen was saying, to each other, and empathizing, and really helping us people to move through these times and situations with a community together. So that's going on. You just go to www.facebook.com/groups/amputate fear and just join the group right there. We'd love to see you over there. So remember, you are the inspirations. Inspirations is the catalyst to motivation. Motivation in turn causes actions. Actions then lead us to transformation results. And these results, they re-inspire us or allow other people who are watching the process to catch the vision. We always end the show by saying, go forth and inspire your world, because go is your command. Forth, that's your direction. Inspire is your vocation. Your, because this is your DNA. It's only personal work to you, and world, because this is your sphere of influence. So go forth, inspire your world. We'll see you back here next week at 3:12 in the afternoon Mountain Time with another guest that we're going to have on. And I can't wait to introduce you to that individual. It's going to be another mighty conversation. See you next week. Go forth, inspire your world. My name is John Register. Bye for now.